Hello and welcome to another chapter commentary for We Ride the Storm. We're up to chapter 3 today. As you can see, I'm in my extremely fancy hashtag kill uniform. This is the new, with my Miko symbol on the side, my new writing uniform. So, or my new YouTube uniform. I don't know. People have YouTube uniforms. Anywho's, today we are going to talk about Cassandra's first chapter. This is her fancy symbol, crossed blades, because she's a stab. Anyhow, so this was always the third chapter. I think even though things got moved around with the first two, Cassandra was always the third and final point of view character to be introduced in the first book. I really had no idea. That seems to be a bit of a theme I have going with these things, that like I didn't really plan this, and so I had no idea what was going to happen in her chapter. I just knew that I needed a Chiltern perspective for this story to make sense, because it's, it's not about one side being good and one side being evil. It's just about the fact that people are all different. So I needed someone with the Chiltern perspective. So I thought, okay, we're going to do this. She's going to be a slightly older woman. She's also going to be lower class. So we get, a fairly broad perspective on what's going on, I guess. Someone who doesn't buy into the idea that gods, emperors are gods, and all of that stuff. Anywho, so for those who've read it, for those who haven't, I mean, this is going to be full of spoilers, so you should probably read it before you watch these. But for those who read it, know that Cassandra starts off as she means to continue, with much stabbing and general kind of rudeness. Now, I want to talk a little bit about she. So she is what Cassandra calls the voice that's in her head, because she's always been there. There's no specific reason given or why or how Cassandra knows that the voice is female. Possibly just she's always assumed so because she personally is female, or because she feels female or sounds female. There's no kind of discussion that was given on that. But she's kind of, I planned for her to be there. So when I say I don't plan, I don't plan a lot. But I did plan for the extra voice to be there, and because of their ability. So the ability that they develop later on, they've always had, but they use later on. Guess I'll try not to spoilers that, just in case you're watching these like one chapter at a time. So that was always meant to be there. But then I made the kind of deliberate decision that I wanted there to be friction. I didn't want she and Cassandra to essentially be interchangeable. I wanted there to be quite a lot of friction between the two voices, so that you get more of their personalities. They're kind of more fun, I guess, to play with, especially because Cassandra is, in the beginning, especially, the least connected into the rest of the story. So everything that she's doing is super important, and you need to know about it, but she doesn't meet up with other members of the cast really for quite a while. She kind of feels like she's the out on the side one. So I needed for her to be able to show her personality in the way she interacts with the people around her, but she's also kind of a bit of a loner because she hates people. Hello, putting my hating peopleness into a character. I don't hate you all, I promise. I wanted there to be friction in the person that she can't get rid of, which also kind of gives her a reason for being extra desirous of getting rid of she. It's not just that, ooh, there's a voice in my head and I don't like it. It's also, there's a voice in my head and I don't like that voice. They're an awful person. We don't get along. So that was going to be way more fun. So those are kind of the two things that I did plan pre working on this chapter. I knew kind of roughly who I wanted Cassandra to be. She was going to be abrasive and to the point, and a bit she's not really caring what she says, whereas the voice in her head is a little bit more prim and proper and a bit more, can we not do that? So, and get that friction, which I really was keen on. So, in the same way that the previous two chapters were very much trying to get a feeling of who the characters were across early on, Cassandra's first chapter is a little bit more day in the life of. That is something you hear a lot when you think about planning stories, that we need to see what a character's life was like before an inciting incident that sends us on our story journey. So that whole idea of, a day in the life of Cassandra. So essentially that's what this chapter is. This is a night in the life of Cassandra, pre-inciting incident, what her day-to-day would be like. So we go on, we start with her at the end of an assassination. We follow her through just walking back through the town, Geneva to back to her lodgings. And that entire journey is, not particularly exciting or anything, but we get a really strong feel for who Cassandra is, her relationship with her relationship to the church, Don Leo Villiers is part of, which is going to be important, those kinds of things. So we get an idea for what her life is like, about how she's fairly isolated by choice. This is her job, these are the people that she interacts with, this is how she interacts with them, and now we're going to throw in our inciting incident at the end. So, it's much more of a traditional way of opening a story than the previous two chapters, in which the characters are kind of already on a journey. You don't really ever see a kind of a day in the life of Miko before everything goes to hell, and you never see a day in the life of Ra when he is back on the plains. He talks about it a lot as the series continues, about like what life is like there, but you never actually got to see a day in the life of. You just start with him, already in exile. So this was a little bit different in that regard. So, we see our day in the life of Cassandra. And as I said, it was really important to me to get across how her relationship with all of the various social elements around her. One of the main things that got altered between the self-published version and the traditional version was more of her background, her relationship with the Church of the One True God, the stuff about Cleric Oldham and her past. I think was so that we kind of, I guess, felt a little bit more connected to her why she is all of these things. So that stuff has kind of always been there about her family and whatever, but it was never really brought forward in the first book. So I thought, we need to know a little bit more concretely about her and why she is the way she is early on. So that was really the main change. Otherwise, all of the stuff as we go through, she goes through the market. Oh, I did add, so the scene in which she sees Don Villiers sitting outside the market and all of the people are there, that is actually new too. So again, that was to do with trying to really anchor her in her relationship to the church, to him, because ultimately he plays a really big part in her story, even though, they interact not quite as much as you would think from that in this book. So all of that idea of her feeling like she was being recognized by the priests, that they knew that something was up. So all the tiny little feelings like something is not quite right are relatively new. I'm pretty sure all of them went in the traditional version, not in the self-published version. But her interaction with the vendor where she buys the stiff was all there, and again was about showing her priorities, I guess, that she prioritizes getting rid of the voice in her head for a space of time above like anything else, above paying for her board, above food, above doing her job properly. She's not supposed to steal from the people that she kills, but she does to feed her habit, and her habit is entirely built not by dislike of her position or her job or anything else, but entirely by trying to numb the voice in her head. So by the time we get to the end of this chapter and we see her being offered the chance to be permanently free of this voice, we've had it established how much she hates it and prioritizes the getting rid of it, and the amount of friction that they have as a pair, and how much kind of they would probably both not want to be together. So while she is kind of against it when the opportunity arises, it's more because she feels that she is going to be removed and discarded, and not be allowed to live anymore. So it's more of a fear than a wish to stay with Cassandra. I think they would certainly be apart if they could. So this is not actually a particularly interesting chapter to chat about, because, yeah, it didn't change very much. It's relatively straightforward in terms of what it was trying to achieve. We get to know Cassandra, we get to know the way she interacts with people, and how much she really hates the voice in her head, and then we give her the opportunity to get rid of it if she'll, take on a new job. And, because this is fiction, we know that new job is gonna go bad. So we're just kind of setting up how that's going to happen, so that we can, move on into the rest of her story. So really, it was, yeah, quite a straightforward chapter. Day in the life of Cassandra. Offer her the bad choice at the end of getting what she wants if she does an extra job for free, really. Like, she's not going to get paid extra for that one, but she might please get the chance of peace, of having the voice in her head removed. So yeah, that was really, it didn't change very much at all. I've always really quite liked it because it's just a really sort of simple, straightforward, very Cassandra kind of chapter, which, again, that concept of your introductory chapters with your point of view characters kind of encapsulating them and their journey. So, Cassandra's whole journey is about this idea of the dualness of her existence, that she has this voice in her head that's not going away, and she has to come to terms with or deal with that aspect of herself and how she feels about it, not just how it affects her day-to-day life. So I guess that's kind of it. I won't drag it out with extra things that we don't need to talk about. Um, yeah, I think my favorite thing, though, is definitely that this comes with the line from that I put on all of my promotional cards for Cassandra. It comes from this chapter. The again with this desire to kill me. I desire to kill many men. It's nothing personal. I love that so much. Yeah, anyway, very Cassandra. So that's it for chapter 3. Very brief little chapter 3 commentary because it's not very exciting. I think I've said that like 8 times now. Too bad I'm not editing this. It's too much work. And I will be back for chapter 4 very soon. So see you later.